Thuolo machielo nyakora Ramogi arwaki ni machiegni mar yudo weche manyien mag kagi kacha. Magi gin kagi kacha motenore kod weche yiero mag piny Kenya. Mano bedo tarik 9 dwe mar 8 kaachiel kod mago mabende nyotimo odiechieng' manyoro tarik 29 dwe mar 8 2022. Nyakora Ramogi waketo wang'wa e konde duto mag piny Kenya mar mi mago matimore e weche mopogore opogore. Par ni kawuono do bedo gi romo margi mokwongo ma dho liech dendo ni pre-trial conference ma ema iwinjo godo weche kaka ibiro riemb bura e nyim doho mamalo mogik ma pacho ka kuom thuolo ma nyaka tarik 5 dwe mar 9 mibiro landi kata ibiro gol duoko kowuok e doho ka ging'ado wach margi mogik e bura manochwal e nyimgi ka ikwedo tend kata loch mar William Ruto yiero ma tarik 9 dwe mar 8. Mokwongo wayud weche ma wamiyo pek. Doho mamalo mogik ogolo chik mondo nuo kweno mar ombulu e tesende 15 mani kweth mar Azimio gole ng'ur kaluwore kod duoko mar ombulu mar Compton piny.
Niko tayari kufanya kazi na yoyote Mombasa tuipeleke mbele.
Duond bura mar ODM oyudo gavanas 2 bang' IEBC lando Abdul Swamad Nasir kaka jaloch Mombasa ka Fernandes Barasa oyombo Kakamega.
The new plates are assisting us to synchronize the data sets that we have so that we not only have accurate identity of the vehicles, but we'll also have accurate information on the background and origins and ownership of the motor vehicles.
Weg nyamburko mapacho ka koro nigi dweche 18 kende mar loko namba ndikruok mar nyamburko gi. Piny owacho ochiwo chik makamano. Arwaki ni machiegni nyakora Ramogi mar yudo weche manyien adimba kokalo e Ramogi TV. Weche manyien mag kagi kacha yiero 2022. Doho mamalo mogik mapacho ka koro wito oko ng'ur mar jatend duond bura mar chama cha kazi Moses Kuria. Kuria ne ochwalo ng'ur mare doho mamalo mogik mapacho ka ni kweth mar Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance ne temo kelo chochni e chenro mar lando jaloch yiero mar jatend piny Kenya e kar riwo ombulu duto mag yiero no ma Bomas of Kenya. Walter Nyambaga nigi ler mar wachno.
E bura mane ochwalie doho mamalo mogik mapacho ka kod jatenda duond bura mar chama cha kazi Moses Kuria kane ong'ur ni riwruok mar Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance ne okelo tule kar bago rombe ma Bomas of Kenya e kinde lando jaloch mar Compton piny Kenya. Kuria wacho ni duoko mag jalar Compton piny Kenya ne oketie lela ni ji duto e kajens ne ochuko gi otesego kasiro ni ne gin kare e tesende magoyo ombulu duto mohelo 46. Ne olero ne doho ni chenro no ne odhi kare kuom ndalo 6 nyaka chieng' ngeso tarik 13 dwe mar 8 saa 5 mar otieno ma jachung' mar Raila Odinga Saita Bao Kanchori ne ochung' molando ni kar bago romo mane time nonro mag ombulu go ne en kar njore ka tipo mare nomake kod ute mag fwambo. Kuria noko ni chieng' lando duoko mar jalar Compton piny Kenya, jakom mar duol mar IEBC Wafula Chebukati ne owuok mar lando duoko kotene kod kamison 2 mag IEBC kod jata tije mag duol no. Kata kamano, Kuria omedo ni kweth mar Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance no monjo apisasgo mohinyo komison 2 kabende ne gitemo tamogi lando duoko go. Kuria wacho ni seneta manarok moyier Ledamo Lekina, James Orengo, Gladys Wanga kod moko kuom kweth mar Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance norocho chenro mag lendo. Bende omedo ni ne gin kod gige lweny manohinyo jakom mar duol no kendo ne ok obedo kod thuolo mar lando duoko mane oa kuonde mag chung' bura mamoko. Kado mamalo mogik koro wito oko ng'ur mar Kuria. Doho maduong' bende okiro oko kwayo mar jatenda Gano Party David Mwaure mane dwaro ni mondo nywande bura mar Kuria kaka jalman kod dwaro. Doho ng'ado ni Kuria ne orem lero ne doho kaka kwayo mare otudore kod siro kata kwedo loch mar William Ruto kaluwore kod chike mag doho mamalo mogik ma winjo buche mag yiero. Ja-Kenya Julius Orege kod Milton Ariku mane duto dwaro ni mondo mi thuolo e burano bende doho wito kwayo margi. Walter Nyambaga, Ramogi TV, Nairobi.
Nyakora Ramogi Lipot no mar Walter Nyambaga motenore kod gigo matimore do mamalo mogik ma pacho ka Supreme Court mabende chako twak margi kawuono e romo margi mokwongo ma nyiso chakruok mag winjo bura motenore gi duoko mar ombulu e kom mar tend piny Kenya. Nyakwa Ramogi chenro no dhi nyime. Jafwambo marwa Chris Owino osebedo ka nitie e do mamalo ma iluongo ni Milimani mabende e kama oganda kata joyal buche mag doho mamalo mogik Supreme Court tae chenro margi mar winjo ng'ur motenore gi duoko mar ombulu mar jatend piny Kenya ka oluwore gi yiero ma tarik 9 dwe mar 8. Lendo manogol tarik 15 mar dwe mar 8 gi jakom mar IEBC Wafula Chebukati. Odani watudre gi jafwambo marwa Chris Owino mabende nyaka gi sani osebedo e dohono kuom thuolo mar seche ma oingo 10 ka omedo kolonwa mago madhi nyime e doho mamalo mogik Supreme Court mar piny Kenya. Chenro chakore Chris. Nyaka gi sani gin ang'o gini ma dhi nyime e dohono? Gin mage mowachi? Gin mage ma oseket nyime ni biro ng'iyo kata biro nyiso kaka ibiro ta wach mar bura e doho ni nyaka chop gol duoko mogik tarik 5 mar dwe mar 9 Chris?
Erokamano George Bati. E kinde ni gima dhi nyime en ni joyal buche 7 mag doho mamalo mogik e pacho kae the Supreme Court ne odhi e yweyo matin kane gitiyo kod yweyo makamano mar kolo kendo golo chung' margi ewi moko kuom weche mane okinde mag duol matayo yiero e pacho kae IEBC, okinde mar jatend piny moyier William Ruto kaachiel kod okinde mag jaogai mar ODM kod Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Raila Odinga ne ogolo ewi weche moko eseche mag adiero nyango. Moko kuom weche mane okindego ogole chung' mopogore en ni bende onego beni duol matayo yiero e pacho kae IEBC omi thuolo mar kelo okinde kweth 2 nikech ne nitie kweth 2 mag okinde mane dwaro ni mondo gichung' e lo IEBC e bura makama ka kweth mokwongo otelne kod Attorney General machon ma pacho kae Githu Muigai, kae komachielo kweth mar IEBC machielo moting'o jalup jakom IEBC Juliana Cherera kod commissioners mamoko 3 ne okelo Paul Muite mondo ochung' e logi. Mane okelo ywarok mapek e nyim doho ka nitiere jogo mane wacho ni IEBC onego bedni tayo kata ichung'ne e bura makamae kod kweth achiel mar okinde. Koro mano wach mokwongo mwageno ni joyal buche 7 mag Supreme Court dhi golo chung' margi to bende gidhi yie ni IEBC obed kod kweth 2 mag okinde kose. Kopogre kod mano bende nitiere wach mar medo thuolo okinde mag jatend piny moyier William Ruto kane oloso okil kamalo kamaduong' mar kweth mar William Ruto Fred Ngatia ne dwaro ni mondo omedgi saa achiel e wi seche ma doho omiyogi ka giwacho ni omi okinde mag Azimio thuolo makta seche mathoth ka ipimo kodgi. Koro bende waketo itwa kod wengewa maneno ka joyal buche 7 mag Supreme Court dhi medogi saa achiel ma gikwayono kose gidhi bet kar tiendgi ni sama seche mosemigi oromo. Kopogre kod mano Bati, wach machielo ma bende joyal buche mag doho mamalo maduong' nyalo loso e wiye en weche motenore kod polling stations 15 ma bende ne giwacho ni kochopo chieng' tich ang'wen to idhi golo duoko margi. Antiere polling station kuonde duto ombulu maromo 15 ma ibiro timo ne ombulu magi idhi nono kendo kolo kochopo chieng' tich ang'wen to ibiro golo ni jopiny to duoko margi bende ne odhi kalure kod chike matayo yiero e pacho kae. Koro wageno ni thuolo moro amora kochakre sechegi joyal buche mamalo, joyal buche 7 mag doho mamalo e bwo telo mar joyal buche maduong' Martha Koome biro lero ne jopiny to chung' margi en mane ewi weche ma okindego ne ogolo e seche mag saa 6 motelo ne dhi e yweyo margi matin kendo ne gisingo ni kochopo saa 10 to gibiro wuok oko kendo nyiso chung' margi. Bati mano e gima dhi nyime kae ka pod waketo wang'wa mar neno to gidonj kendo ginyiswa ni to chung' margi en ang'o motelo ne chak chakruok mar bura makamano odiochieng' makiny, nikech odiochieng' makawuono ne en na mar keto ot kata keto Supreme Court e lai kuom keto chike madhi tayo bura madhi chakore ayanga odiochieng' makiny. To chik mage manyaka lu mabini mago jal buche maduong' Martha Koome olero chike manyaka lu e kinde ma okinde kaachiel kod ji duto manie doho mamalo mogik biro chopo ka chwalo ng'ur margi kaachiel kod kwayo margi ewi bura makwedo yiero ma jatend piny moyier William Ruto kod jalupne Rigathi Gachagua. Bati.
Erokamano Nyakris Owino kuom ler makamano kuwuok e doho mamalo mogik ma bende iwacho ni joyal buche mage ikore mar duo kendo chiwo moko kuom chung' margi kaka gibiro dwaro ni mondo mi riemb bura ma ochwal ka ing'ur ewi duoko mar ombulu mar jatend piny Kenya kaluwore gi lendo manogol gi jakom mar IEBC Wafula Chebukati tarik 15 mar dweni mar 8. Chris, agino ni pod ibiro miyo ler mathoth ahinya kuom gik mamedo dhi nyime doho mamalo mogik Supreme Court makoro chenro mage itayo e dohono ma Milimani ma okindego kaachiel kod joyal buche duto obedoe mar mondo giwinje bura makwedo loch mar William Samoei Ruto manoland gi Wafula Chebukati jakom mar IEBC. Nyakora mogi wadhi nyime kotendo gi mago manosewachi motelo e doho mamalo mogik Supreme Court ma pachoka. Doho mamalo mogik ogolo chik mondo mi onon sanduge mag luto ombulu kendo nuo kweno mag ombulu e tesend goyo ombulu 15 mane kweth mar Azimio la Umoja One Kenya ogole ng'ur kaluwore kod duoko mar ombulu e kom jatend piny. Chik makamano dwaro ni IEBC mondo mi onon kendo kata onuo kweno mar ombulu e tesende 3 e kaunti ma Nandi, tesende 3 moko e kaunti ma Kericho kod tesende 6 e kaunti ma Mombasa. Kweno bende idwa ni onuo e tesende 3 moko ma yudore e kaunti ma Nyandarua. E kinde no doho bende ochiko mondo mi IEBC ochwal sanduge duto mag ombulu manotigo e kaunti 6 kamoting'o kaunti ma Bomet, Nandi, Kiambu, Kericho, Kirinyaga kod kaunti ma Nyeri. Kopogore kod sandugego, doho bende ochiko duol mar IEBC mondo mi ochwal duoko mag kuonde ute bura kata kuonde ute chung' od bura maromo 290 kaka ne nitiere form 34B ma aching' kod mar mbui kod form duto mag 32A manyiso kaka ne oyange jogo ombulu ma nyingegi ne okoyudi e mbui kod masinde mag IEBC. Do bende dwaro ni report mondo mi ochwal ewi kaka IEBC chano reso chenrogi mag ombulu kama sinde mag-gi ong'ikore. Magi duto otimore ka dwaro nitie mondo mi ochop dwaro nitie ni mondo magi duto chopne do e thuolo mar ndalo 2 kende. Wadhi nyime Nyakwara Mogi kod weche mabende medo wuok ka kod kacha kaka gin weche manyien ma ka gi kacha motende gi duoko mag ombulu manotim tarik 9 dwe mar 8 kanyakla kod mago mabende nyotimo dichieng' manyoro. Koro wadonje mago maduoko margi oland kawuono. Fernandes Barasa mar ODM e jaloch mar kom gavana e kaunti ma Kakamega kendo yombo Cleophas Malala mar ANC. Kaluwore kod duoko mar ombulu manyogo nyoro kendo land kod apisa mochung' ne yiero e kaunti ma Kakamega, Barasa yudo kwando ombulu maromo 1192,929 kendo yombo Malala ma oyudo kwando ombulu maromo 159,500 to kod 8. Fernandes Barasa koro dhi bedo gavana mar 2 ma Kakamega ka okawo kar Wycliffe Oparanya ma osebedo katayo kaunti no kuom higni 10 mokalo. Wadhi nyime tend kaunti ma Siaya ok bi chulo gope nyaka nonro matut tim. Ma en chik ma jalup gavana ma Siaya William Oduolo golo ka oyango ni kaunti ma Siaya ne nigi gope madirom siling $500,000 gope ma osechokore chakre higa mar 2012. Oduol olero ni nonro nyaka bi tim mar yango ler ewi gopego kendo jok mane omiora kibiro chul mana tok nonro no. Bende ojiwo jotije mag kaunti mondo mi obed kod kwe ka owacho ni onge jatich makare mabiro wito tije nikech weche mag siasa. Oduolo singo tieko chenro mane ok orumo e bwo tend Colonel Rasanga.
When you have liabilities, also about blending beans. You want to ensure that number one, they are genuine, and number two, that they relate for they are for the previous periods that they have said they relate to, and so for us to start on a good note, it is important that we establish authenticity of those ingredients, accuracy of those ingredients, and that is why we said, and I said during my coming, that there will be need for us to carry out an audit, so that we do not end up paying fictitious bills.
Gavana ma Migori Ochilo Ayako wacho ni piny owacho mar kaunti ma Migori biro mana chulo gope ma oyangi kendo mago manotigo e kelo weche mag dongruok ma konyo ganda e kaunti ma Migori. Ochilo manowuoyo kinde mane odonje apisi mare odiechieng' ma okwongo tok chamo muma, owacho ni jogo ma pok ochul gope ode mana nyuok. Owacho ni piny owacho mare dhi chugo komiti ma dhi ng'iyo weche gope ka kaunti no nitiere kod gope maromo siling milion 807. Bende onyiso jotije kaunti ni oti gi oganda yo makare, ka owacho ni jatich ma ok ti e yo makare idhi kaune okang' mar chik.
Want to tell the public servants of Migori County, that get back to work. Stop truancy, stop maladministration, stop laziness, get back to work. When you work well for your administration, you work well for yourself and the people. When you work well for the administration, you also work well for God, because God installs governments and the rulers of the day. So I want to urge the public servants of Migori, get back to work. We have been mandated by the public to effect changes swiftly and efficiently, and we will not allow our servants to stand on the way. If they stand on the way, we'll get them out of that way.
Riwruoge ma opogore opogore mag piny owacho kod maok mag piny owacho e kaunti ma Homa Bay ojiwo rowere mondo mi odhi nyime nyayo kwe ka chenro mag doho bende dhi nyime. Ka idhi odiechieng' mar rowere, puoch omed mi rowere e boma ma Homa Bay kuom tayore e yo makare kinde mag yiero kod toke yiero, kata bedni nitiere chochni matindo tindo. Jalup County Commissioner ma Homa Bay Jude Wasonga wacho ni kwe ema kelo dongruok kendo ganda owinjo bedni ahinya to rowere oneni giketo kwe e kinde duto te.
Today's event, we are celebrating International Youth Day celebration, where we involve young people to champion for development agendas and to be the agent of change at the community level. As you can see in regards to our theme today, it is called intergenerational dialogue, I believe so, if I'm not wrong. So we want just to create a sustained engagement when it's come to different generation, whereby the older generation can engage meaningfully with young people at the community level.
And this is also an opportunity for us as youth in Homa Bay to show that we are peaceful people. That whatever the outcome is, we are still peaceful. We are not going to destroy anything. We are not going to burn down anything. And this is going to start with a procession from here that our county commissioner is going to flag us off. And as we walk from here to Kabunde, it is a way of showing solidarity, that the old are also included in everything that they do. So we expect to see the older generation even today as we move out to Kabunde.
It is indeed a very good occasion, and I'd like to thank all those people who have made this possible, and to thank especially the youth for showing the rest of the world that elections can be done in peace. People are anticipated there will be some chaos, but the youth play their role as well as everybody else, and that is the way to go.
Piny owacho lando ni namba ndikruok mag nyamburko ma itiyogodo sani duto owinjo wil. Giwacho ni gimiyo weg nyamburko dweche 18 mar timo lokruok machalo kod ma, ka chendo ni biro kao siling 3,000 kuom wuon nyamburko ka nyamburko madwani mondo wil namba ndikruok mar nyamburko mare.
Comprehensive and complete integration between the data sets at NTSA and other data sets as it were in terms of
if you want to monitor the movement of vehicles within and across the borders, what you are doing today is actually very historic. Secondly, you know, Kenya is actually a transit hub whereby vehicles are coming by ship, coming to our country, into landlocked countries, you know, in the region. And so if you don't have a proper monitoring system, tracking system, we shall have a lot of issues in terms of, you know, fraud and so forth.
As you know, as government, one of the main promises we made to Kenyans is that we are going to be digital, and that we're going to ensure that the way we use our data, the way we use our information is going to make life easier and better for everybody. And so today is a major milestone to see this production facility, which is now bringing to life, or even bringing our vehicles and making them finally digital.
The new plates are assisting us to synchronize the data sets that we have, so that we not only have accurate identity of the vehicles, but we'll also have accurate information on the background and origins and ownership of the motor vehicles. With this, I am confident that if this is fully implemented and followed, I have no reason to believe that there are Kenyans who will not want to do that. We will deal with tax evasion sometimes at the point of entry, the importation of motor vehicles. We will bring an end now to selling of motor vehicles that are stolen from other jurisdictions, so that we are addressing both a transcontinental problem in the movement of motor vehicles and also a transnational problem.
Jopuonj ariyo mag sikund primar manyamni ni apodi dhi med dinegi e tesend obila mayala nyaka tarik 1 dwe manyien ka girito mondo do migi rambun. Jopuonj go magin Paul Osogo kanyakla koda Morino Tieno magin jopuonj mag sikund primar manyamni ni itudo kod chwado yo maraj japuonjre moro mar sikundno. Jang'ad bura mar do Masia Lester Simiyu ema ong'ado ma ka duol mar TAC to ne oseteng'o lwetgi mogo. Do biro ng'ado ka chijego ibiro we thuolo kod rambun kato oyo. Gi weche mabende waluwo godo chenro mag doho ma malo mogik ma pacho ka ma wadendo ni Supreme Court. Doho ma malo mogik ogolo chik mondo miyo non sanduge mag luto ombulu kendo onuo ombulu e tesende maromo 15 mane kweth mag Azimio la Umoja One Kenya ogolo ng'ur kaluwore kod duoko mar ombulu mar komtend piny. Chik makama dwaro ni IBC mondo miyo nuo kendo kweno mar ombulu e tesende 3 e kaunti ma Nandi, tesende 3 moko e kaunti ma Kericho kod tesende 6 e kaunti ma Mombasa. Kweno mar ombulu bende idhi nuo e tesende 3 moko e kaunti ma Nyandarua. E kindeno doho bende ochiwo chik mondo miyo IBC ochwal sanduge duto mag ombulu mane otigodo e kaunti za 6 kamoting'o kaunti ma Bomet, Nandi, Kiambu, Kericho, Kirinyaga kod kaunti ma Nyeri. Mopogore koda sandugego, do bende ochiko duol mar IBC mondo mi ochwal duoko mag kude ute bura maromo 290 kaka ne gintiere form 34B maching kod mbui kod form duto mag 32A manyiso kaka ne oyang jogo magin jogo ombulu. Ramogi mago gin weche manyien mag kagi kacha kaka wachoko ni kendo wakoloni konde duto mag piny Kenya kokalo odwa mar kawo weche manyien. Pod wantiere ka kod kacha nikech jofwambo magwa okere konde mopogore mag piny Kenya Ramogi mondo mi adieri kuom gik matimore e thuolo ni. Nyaka ge sani koro ni mondo mi ateri achiel kachiel nyaka e doho mamalo mogik mapacho ka ma iluongo ni Supreme Court matayo chenro magi e doho mamalo ma Milimani buore Nairobi. Kama nyaka ge sani Ramogi en koro tielo mar ariyo mar romo margi makawuono. Ne gichako odiechieng' makawuono ka giketo kare ya yore gi lai ma winjo be ni biro ti godo e yalo bura mar ng'ur makwedo duoko mar ombulu mar tend piny Kenya. Nyaka ge sani joyal buche abiriyo mag doho no osebedo piny kendo kinde bende osebedo e doho. Ramogi atiere achiel kachiel nyaka e doho. Nyinga en George Bati.
We apologize for the short delay. The further directions following this morning session, when a few issues were raised, the further directions would be given by the Honorable Deputy Chief Justice and Vice President of the Supreme Court, the Honorable Lady Justice Philomena Mwiru.
With your kind indulgence, Your Ladyship, the President, Your Ladyships, and my Lords, my name is Amondi Kenneth. I do appear for Mr. Professor Wajakoya, that is a presidential aspirant in the contested presidential election, together with my...
Council, can you please take your seat? Can we read the directions first? Then we'll deal with your issue, because Professor Wanjakoya is not a petitioner, is not a party. Can you kindly take your seat?
Most obliged.
Thank you, Judge President. These are the further directions of the court. In the course of issuing directions this morning, the 30th August 2022, on the hearing of the 2022 presidential election petitions, Council appearing for various parties made certain applications necessitating these further directions. Number one, request for additional time. The request for additional time by Council for the first, second, and the 9th respondents over and above the time allocated and issued earlier this morning is hereby declined. Direction number two, representation of the IEBC. After the various petitions were filed and served on the IEBC, and the chairman of the IEBC, Wafula Chebukati, appointed counsel to represent him. The law firms went on record and filed their responses respectively. At the same time, the four commissioners, namely Juliana Sherere, Vice Chairperson, Francis Wandera, Justus Nyangaya, and Irene Masit, were named as respondents in various petitions individually, and they retained their respective counsel, and they filed their responses. On the 27th of August 2022, the firm of Issa and Company Advocates lodged a notice of appointment of advocates that is dated the 26th August 2022, purporting to act for the IEBC. At the pre-trial conference this morning, the issue of the legal representation arose. The IEBC, through the firm of Iseme Maema and Kamau Advocates, filed an application on the 29th of August 2022 seeking to strike out the notice of appointment and all pleadings by ISA and company advocates. The motion was supported by an affidavit filed and deponed by Marjan Hussein Marjan, the Secretary and Chief Executive Officer of the IEBC. We have now been called upon to give directions and to resolve the question of legal representation of the IEBC. We have considered the pleadings, the record, and the brief statements by counsel. It's our considered view that this court cannot deal with the issue or any dispute as to the legal representation of the IEBC as an institution in these petitions. It is not the business of the court to determine who represents the IEBC in whichever formation. There is an internal issue which must be resolved by the IEBC, its commissioners, and other internal organs. This court will not be drawn into this dispute in these circumstances. As a result, the application to strike out the notice of appointment and pleadings ignore what I've just read. We've considered these arguments, and as a result, we allow the application dated the 29th August 2022, that is to say, the notice of appointment filed by ISA and company advocates is struck out. The four commissioners are at liberty to deploy and utilize the services of Senior Counsel Paul Muite and Isa Mansour advocate if they deem it necessary in these proceedings. Direction number 3, pleadings filed out of time. As regards pleadings that were filed out of time for whatever reason, whether because the judiciary electronic filing system was down and or slow, or due to late service, we direct as follows. On account of the dictates of Article 48 of the Constitution of Kenya 2010, in respect of access to justice and the national importance nature of the presidential election petition, we direct that all pleadings that were filed out of time, including those that were filed by 2 p.m. today, be and are hereby deemed to have been filed in time. The parties against whom such filings are made shall not respond to them by way of replies, but rather shall be at liberty to respond thereto by way of oral submissions during hearing. At all times, this court reserves the right during judgment, upon consideration of the issues therein raised and the relevant law, to expunge from the record pleadings that offend the procedures of the court or have the effect of mutating the original petitions. Number 4, scrutiny. We direct the Inspector General of Police, in liaison with the Registrar of this court, to provide adequate security during the exercise of scrutiny. Direction number 5, additional counsel. Excuse me. The number of counsel permitted in the courtroom beginning tomorrow remains as directed by this court this morning and shall be firmly enforced. Direction number 6, further affidavit. Learned counsel for the first respondent, the Honorable William Samoei Ruto, has informally applied for leave to respond to 2 affidavits presented by the Attorney General in petition number E007 of 2022. With effect from today, the 30th day of August 2022, 2 p.m., as indicated in paragraph 3 above, the court will not entertain any further lodgement of pleadings. However, counsel is granted leave to respond to the 2 affidavits that were presented by way of oral submissions at the hearing. Direction number 7, amici applications to participate in scrutiny. Mr. Charles Kanjama, Senior Counsel, Counsel for the amicus, John Walubengo, Counsel for the amici, John Walubengo, Dr. John Sevilla, and Martin Mirero, has made an application to participate in the scrutiny exercise ordered by this court in a ruling delivered today, the 30th of August 2022. He now wishes to make a report on the same and, if need be, amend his amicus brief, which is already on record. Quite rightly, apologies, we will omit that bit. This is the direction. The role of the amici ought to be limited to the written brief. That's common knowledge. Indeed, when we admitted Mr. Kanjama's client in this matter, we specifically stated that the amici will not make oral submissions and shall rely solely on their written brief. In addition, we reiterate the guiding principles in the case of Francis Muruatetu and another versus the Republic and 5 others. Supreme Court petition numbers 15 and 16 of 2015 consolidated, 2016 EKLR, and an amicus curiae shall not participate in interlocutory applications unless called upon by the court to address specific issues. Consequently, we decline this particular request. Those are the further directions of the court, and they are signed by the 7 of us. Thank you, Judge President.
Thank you, Vice President of the court. Those are the directions. We have a long journey ahead of us. We have to prepare for tomorrow, but for the sake of the advocate, Mr. Omondi, who rose on his feet to speak about his client, Professor Wanjakoya, just to remind him that we do not have a petition under Article 140 challenging the election of the president-elect. We also do not have an application seeking to join the proceedings. You have heard the directions given that we have closed the proceedings. In any event, we have also made an elaborate ruling where a similar candidate, the Honorable Mwaure, was seeking to join the case as an interested party, and that application was declined because we do not allow interested parties under our rules. Therefore, the lawyer, the advocate, unfortunately, you can't make an oral application at this late stage. Printings have closed, and we have to deal with the parties that we joined this morning in the consolidated appeal. With that, Learned Counsel.
Please, with your very, very kind permission, bring one issue to the attention of the court. We are working very hard to comply with your order for scrutiny. We know that in 2017, the court was not happy with the pace at which the commission worked. But two little issues remain for clarification so that we may expedite. Can my learned junior please do that?
Scrutiny is an ongoing exercise from this afternoon up to Thursday, so that is okay, Counsel.
Thank you very much, my lady, the President of the Court, the members of the Court. We had occasion this afternoon after the Court broke to compare notes with the Registrar in terms of how the orders on scrutiny will be complied with. And a few issues arose, which we agreed that I will present before you for your further guidance. In relation to the second order that the court gave, that is the order in relation to access to the servers, we would wish to get a clarification from the court as to whether that order is to be taken to mean a read-only access. That is for the obvious reasons that might come with the order that goes beyond a read-only access. In relation to order number 5, the court did direct that we avail ballot boxes in relation to a number of polling stations. Now, reading through the polling stations that have been identified, some of them are actually polling centers as opposed to polling stations. So we wanted to get a clarification as to whether where you indicate a name that refers to a polling center, then it, as of necessity, also means that we are talking about ballot boxes from the center and not from the polling station. In relation to order number 7, that is touching on the Form 32As, these forms, my lady and my lord, is supposed to be kept in the ballot boxes after close of polling in the respective stations. It then follows that if we are to avail them, then we may need a further order that we can open those boxes and avail the specific Form 32As. We wanted that clarification. Finally, as part of compliance with the very strict timelines that the court has given in relation to the scrutiny, we did write to the registrar of the court so that following that order number 7, the part that says that the IBC should provide certified copies of Form 32A and 34C Book 2 used in the impugned elections, subject to the applicants providing to the IBC specific contested polling stations for compliance thereof. We did write to the registrar this afternoon when we left court, and we requested that the applicants then avail those contested polling stations, possibly by close of business today, to enable us comply. But for the comfort of the court, I would want to just echo what my learned senior counsel, Gidhu Muigai, did indicate. We have commenced the process of compliance, particularly with the ICT component. I'm most obliged.
With your kind permission, my ladies and my lords, the application was my application.
My lady, sorry for that. I've just been reminded by my learned senior counsel lead, Professor Githu Muigai, that again, in relation to the question of representation, we do not want to reopen it. But when you gave the order in relation to the specific commissioners, you mentioned Professor Gulier, you mentioned Commissioner Molu. Their counsel are not in court today. For clarity, we wanted to just mention that they will have their counsel, subject to your directions, appear in court tomorrow. One for each, as indicated in the order. I'm most obliged.
My Lady Chief Justice, the Supreme Court judges, my name is Professor Wajakoya, a presidential candidate.
Professor Jakoya, please, we have an issue on the floor. Would you wait until we address these issues? Then we can come back to you. Please.
Thank you. Please. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Otieno.
Prayer number 4 that you've granted in the morning, my lords and my ladies. In our application, we had requested for Form 34A's Book 2 of 2, but in your directions, I believe it was misspelled. It was indicated as Form 34C Book 2. So maybe when you give directions, you can clarify that it's Book 34A. So it's Forms 34A Book 2, not 34C. That's all.
Your Ladyship, the Chief Justice, members of this court, we wish to draw your attention to prayer number 2, where you directed that IEBC be compelled to give applicants supervised access to any servers in the National Tallying Center. We request that agents of the first and the second respondent be allowed to be present when that exercise is undertaken. That is our humble request.
Yes, may it please you, Madam Chief Justice, my lords and ladies. Just a clarification. My name is Paul Mwangi for the first and second petitioner, in petition number 5. First, in respect of the orders of the court in paragraph 7, in number 7, I think the order was supposed to read from 32A and from 34A, because what was contested were the documents that were to be inside the ballot paper, so 34C would be a mistake. In respect of the contested polling stations, we have received a letter this afternoon from the lawyers from IEBC, and we shall be responding by close of business, giving the list of the polling stations that we have contested. They are all borne in the petition, and we shall be laying them out in a letter. In respect of the clarification as to the opening of ballot boxes, I believe that would definitely be implied in the order of the court, that if the court were to ask that we gain access, that would imply a permission to open the ballot boxes. In respect of the polling stations that are turning out to be polling centers, I think that has been a common mistake as to when it's a polling station, a polling center. Our position should be that if it has been described as a polling center, then the order would relate to all the polling stations in that center. And lastly, in respect of the access, this court has said that we are to have supervised access. And then the question would not be whether it will be described that read only. We are to obtain all the necessary access to do an audit of the information that is needed, so long as it is supervised. That is all.
Thank you. I will request the Honorable Mr. Justice Lenaura to respond to those issues on behalf of the court.
Thank you very much, Judge President. Let me begin from the last issue, Mr. Mwangi. Indeed, it is polling stations. Following Maina Kiai,
anything to be done must begin from the polling station. So where there's a reference to Belgut polling center, it refers to the polling station. So again, that should be the reference that you're talking about. So let's follow that direction. On the question of contested polling stations, I think that's resolved. You will give the list to the registrar and to the applicants and to the IEBC by close of business today. On prayer number 7, that is a typo. The reference is to forms 32As and 34As, not 34Cs. 34Cs is so it's 34A. And so we amend the direction to read that. On the server, Mr. Kilukumi, I think I don't have the orders here, but the last order allowed 2 agents from every interested party to appear at the centers, whether it is at Forodha House or at IBC, and that resolves Mr. Katwa Kigen's question on venue. I think from the orders, you can only have 2 venues, one at IEBC and one at Forodha House, where the Section 12 documents are at. So I think can resolve that also. Mr. Kilukumi, you can send your agents to work with the registrar and the ICT staff of the judiciary. On the question of supervised or read-only access, the ruling was specific. It is not read-only access. It is supervised access. So when you send your IT people to the servers, the IBC will understand it is supervised access, which is quite different from read-only access, which was the 2017 situation. So please allow them supervised access, which has a different meaning in IT language. What was the other issue? 34, yes, Mr. Mwangi, it is correct. Again, the error was on the book 2, should be the book 2 of 34As, and that has a specific order as to what you do with it. Compliance is by today for the polling station that you're supposed to give. But remember also, one, the question of security, and I think that will be addressed by IBC, and that I think as Chief Justice resolves all the issues that were raised by the parties, unless I've left any. I don't think I have. I think I've addressed all. Have I? Yes, I have. Thank you very much, Chief Justice.
Thank you. There was an issue being raised by Professor Wanjakoya, although I gave directions. I don't know what you wanted to tell the court.
Lady Chief Justice, members of the Supreme Court, I would like to take this opportunity by thanking you, because this is my first time to address the Supreme Court in this country, given the fact that I practice in other jurisdictions. Now, the ball of contention is, and I know, Your Honor, you have already addressed the issue, the ball of contention is, I'm a presidential candidate. I was in this room this morning. My counsels were refused to come in because we had already made a ruling apportioning the number of lawyers that were supposed to come in here, which is okay. But what I want to beg or to pray is that I pray to be given some opportunity, probably under your discretion, so that I can also be enjoined to speak through my counsel on case number 7, of which I was enjoined as an interested party. I've already submitted my responses, and in this room and in the absence of Raila Amolo Odinga and Honorable Ruto, I think I'm the most aggrieved person here, despite the fact that we have also other interested parties. You should also take cognizance that I've run for election in this country. I've traversed this country. I am very seriously injured, and I need to be given an opportunity under exceptional circumstances, if any. And finally, I would also like to thank those who are here, especially Gidu Muigai and James Orengo, for having successfully made me to be who I am today, and my alumni, of course, the Chief Justice, that please let's look beyond the mirror so that we can look at justice to be done, even though people say or collude or speak of fairness. Fairness starts with me in this room. Thank you again.
Thank you, Professor Wajakoya. We indeed recognize the fact that you are one of the presidential candidates in these last elections. We also are aware that you are an advocate. We issued directions regarding the use of this courtroom, and we explained why we only have so many lawyers allowed here. One is the space itself. Number two is the COVID protocols that require us to keep some social distancing. And number three is security. And so we have another room, High Court number 1. If you want to observe from there, that will be well and good. But in this room, we have counsel who are fully participating in these proceedings. So you can observe from the next door, and that's how it's going to go. You've had the last directions, we've given the further directions, that even those counsel who are here, who exceed the number that we gave this morning, will not be allowed in this room. Because we want to leave this room for the purpose for which we gather tomorrow. So we thank you, Professor Wajakoya. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable President. Professor Wajakoya, I think one important thing must come out is that you are a presidential candidate, and we really give you all the accolades and really respect your exercise of your democratic right, and all Kenyans many Kenyans admire you, and we believe you did a great job. However, if you, under the law, under Article 140 of the Constitution, if you are aggrieved as a candidate, you have the first opportunity, you have a right under the law to file a petition challenging the validity. You did not do that, Professor Wajakoya. So you lost that opportunity. So with respect, you have to bear the consequences. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's only that I was trying to make a point that I've been named as an interested party. Otherwise, I would have filed, but thank you. Much obliged.
Thank you very much, my brother, Justice Isouko and Justice Ibrahim, for clarifying and seeking the indulgence of Professor Wajakoya, because we operate under the provisions of the Constitution and the rules of this court, which do not allow interested party. And indeed, if you could read the ruling we delivered this morning on an application made by your colleague, Honorable Mwaure, to be joined as an interested party, was declined. So with those, I will beg that the court will arise. We will assemble here tomorrow at 9. The petitioner will begin the arguments of the petition. We have a very long journey because the time is so strict and very short, remembering that we have to deliver a judgment on Monday. Therefore, we will continue to beg for your indulgence in the way we conduct these proceedings. Have a very, very blessed evening. We are returning to our chambers to work for tomorrow. Thank you. And I believe you are doing the same.